What's up, everybody? I'm trying something a little bit different tonight. I'm going live on both Instagram and YouTube. Hopefully this camera angle is going to be wide enough for you to see everything. And if you see me fumbling around with the tech a little bit, it's because I'm multitasking, trying to cook and make sure all of these things are working correctly at the same time, which I think they are. I think they're working. I'm going to have to go back and forth to kind of keep an eye on these chats. So let me get these things kind of all collated on my computer screen here so I can see all the chats at the same time, plus my broadcasting software, which is a bit much. There's a lot going on with only so much screen space. Okay, so tonight we're not making anything that's particularly new or different. We're just going to refresh, make some taco meat, make some more rice, which is actually what we're going to start with. So I had a request when we were doing a lyric breakdown last week. I had a request for Warrior Spirit. So we're going to do a lyric breakdown on that song tonight. At the same time, I know I keep going back to Ephesians chapter 1 and Ephesians chapter 3. I don't apologize for that. I keep seeing and finding things there. We're going to look specifically at something in Ephesians chapter 1. Dude, it would be super cool if this software will show comments from both platforms. Oh, dope. Okay, I'm going to test something. I'm going to put in my own comment. Check 1, 2. Put that in on Instagram. We're going to see if that comes through. This is a little bit new for me. All right. What's up, Gabriel? On YouTube. Yeah, I don't see that coming through on the software, so I'm just going to have to keep an eye on both of these streams, but I can do that. All right, so here we go. Tonight, I'm going to get started on the rice first. We're going to pull up those lyrics to Warrior Spirit. We're going to talk about them. We might wait a little bit. I think Callista specifically requested it last week, so I'll wait and see if she jumps in here before we start doing that breakdown. First, I gotta wash some. Well, no, you know what? Actually, we're gonna start off with the rice. You get some rice going, about 2 cups in the rice cooker, because that's gonna be the thing that takes the longest. So before we get into the lyric breakdown, I wanted to mention something to you that I know I've been talking about Ephesians 1 and 3 a lot over the last couple of weeks. I keep going back to them for myself and for other people, but I keep seeing more in them too. We're going to do 2 cups of rice. We're doing long grain basmati as always, because I'm a little bit predictable in this area. So in Ephesians chapter 1, we talked about this a few weeks ago, or over the last few weeks. That prayer really has a lot to do with us getting an idea and a conception of the power of God that's available to us. And chapter 3 really has to do with us getting a picture, and not just a picture, but an experience of the love of God. But I want to draw your attention back to something that's in chapter 1 that really stood out to me, honestly, this morning. So, oh, please know I will judge you on how you cook your rice. Look, I know that a lot of people do it in a pot with boiling water, but I'm basic and I have to multitask, so rice cooker it is, though I appreciate it. YouTube, I'm just going to say this one time. I do see your comments, and if you have serious questions that you want to ask and things you want to discuss, that's cool, even if I may not always know or may not have an answer, but if you're just coming in here to meme on me, I'm just going to ignore you. So I'm just letting you know. So in Ephesians chapter 1, though, I want you to pay particular attention to something, and I am keeping an eye on here for when we want to jump into this lyric breakdown. But there's three things that Paul prays that we're also encouraged to pray. It's this. He says that you would know what is the hope of his calling. That's one. And if you've ever done any word study about the word hope in the Bible, it doesn't just mean like wishful thinking. It means a confident expectation of actual good, right? The riches of the glory of his inheritance in the saints, and what is the exceeding greatness of his power toward us who believe. So that's a list, right? That's a list of three things. Well, what do those things mean? That's a question I constantly find myself asking. Because I can speak Christianese, but I prefer not to. I prefer to speak in language that people around me are going to understand. King James English is great because it's so poetic, but it's also King James English for a reason. It's just old British, right? So, what does that mean? Let's go through this list of three things. What is the hope of his calling? So, let's break that down. Paul prays, and we should pray that we would have an understanding of the confident expectation of good that comes from what God has called us to, right? Really breaking that down practically, explain it to me like I'm a fifth grader. What are the riches of the glory of his inheritance in the saints? So there's a couple of ways you can read that, but I believe one of the ways is all of the good things that are included in what Jesus has done for us. Yeah, I know it looks zoomed in, David. I'm actually using a different software because I'm simulcasting to YouTube this time. It's a little different. I'm gonna see if I can just push you back. Does that help? You're right on the edge of my counter, so I can only go back so far. It's using the laptop this time. So, what's up, Elena? So, notice how important it is. The Holy Spirit found it important enough to have Paul pray that we would have an understanding of all the good things that are included in what Jesus has finished for us. And then it says, and what is the exceeding greatness of his power toward us who believe. Okay, so essentially what those things say is we need to continually get a bigger picture of all of the good things included in what Jesus has finished for us, and be gaining a greater and greater picture of the power of God that is available to us. And that's basically what a lot of the Christian life is about, right? We're going to set this rice going, by the way, so I don't just talk and forget about it. White rice, there we go. I think a lot of people are just happy to say, well, I accepted Jesus. That's great. But Jesus redeemed us from a lot of things. He redeemed us from sickness and disease. He redeemed us from the curse. If you juxtapose Galatians 3:13 against Deuteronomy 28, right? Galatians 3:13 says that Christ has redeemed us from the curse of the law. And Deuteronomy chapter 28 tells us what all's involved in the curse. And it's sickness, it's disease, it's calamity, it's all these bad things. And then that's backed up by the way that Paul prays for us in Ephesians chapter 1. He's like, I'm praying that you would get a bigger picture of this, of the riches of the glory of his inheritance, of all the things that are included in this package. It's the same thing when we talk about the word we use for salvation, right? It's the Greek word sozo. It comes from the Greek word soteria, and it means nothing missing or broken. It means the full package. It means a whole lot more than people often even have the guts to admit, because they're concerned somebody is going to accuse them of practicing American Christianity. And it's like, dog, it's not American Christianity. It's that there is more wrapped up in the completeness of what Jesus did for us than we even realize. So much so that Paul was prompted to pray that you would have a greater picture, a greater understanding, a greater experience of these things. So that's something that stood out to me this morning, and it relates to a whole lot of things that I've been seeing elsewhere. So I just thought that was cool. That's for free. Before I really do this properly, I need to wash some dishes, and I also need to defrost our ground beef from a couple of weeks ago. Why? So somebody on YouTube is asking, why don't a lot of people like the Apostle Paul? Was it because he got straight to the point, or what? Well, that's a good question. I don't know. I can't tell. I'm not inside the mind of other people. What I can tell you is that I forget who it was. I want to say it may have been James. It may have been James. It may have been John. You may have to check me on that. But elsewhere in the Bible, there's actually another writer in the New Testament that says reading Paul is hard. Like, Paul was so well educated in his Jewish life before he became a full-blown Christian and had an experience with Jesus, that he was just, not only was he spiritually deep, but he was intellectually deep and intellectually well-informed, so much so that he could debate fluently with the Greek philosophers of his day, right? So, but that means that, like, sometimes he was so wordy and straight to the point that he was a little bit hard to understand. Then add on top of it the fact that there's a language barrier, right? We're translating from Greek and Aramaic to English in the New Testament. And that it's not to say that we can never understand what the Bible says because it's so deep. No. I mean, look, you can explain the Bible to a fifth grader and they can understand it. But there are a lot of layers that you can unpack, right? And you can be a good exegete if we want to, use the really, really nerdy terminology. I got to defrost this ground beef. Give me 1 second. I'm going to have to end up turning this camera a lot, I think, because it's not nearly as wide as the one on the phone. All right, we got to go defrost. Number 1 is meat. And we're going to call this about 1 pound, because I measured it out last time, if you remember. Start. Cool. That's going to take about 10 minutes. So while we do that, I'm going to wash some dishes. Brutal honest. Well, Paul talked a lot about grace. Romans is really interesting where that's concerned, right? Like, Paul comes out of the gate talking about sin, like not holding anything back, talking about sin. But the book of Romans also includes so much language about grace. Romans 8:1, there's therefore now no condemnation to those who are in Christ Jesus. Later on in Romans 8, if the same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead dwells in you, he will quicken and make alive your mortal body. That relates to healing. It relates to the Holy Spirit working in us. Romans 8 is a great chapter about being free from feeling bad, about being condemned if you've accepted Jesus. And that's a perk of salvation. If you don't know Jesus, look, I can't stop you from feeling bad. About trying to get straight. But the thing is, the point isn't for you to feel like a dog. The point is for you to realize how much you need Jesus. But then once you've accepted him, you're still not going to do everything perfectly. And that's why you need that reassurance, that forgiveness and the freedom from condemnation is there and has been provided. So yeah, Paul doesn't pull his punches in a lot of ways, but at the same time, he is one of our greatest writers on the subject of grace. What's up, Callista? I see you in there. Yeah, I saw your request to go over the lyrics to Warrior Spirit. So tonight we're going to unpack, we're going to do a lyric breakdown for my song Warrior Spirit, which came out a couple years ago now, but it's one of my favorites. And here's the thing. Before we even, let's talk about that song. That's a tough guy song, and I know it, right? Like, that is one of those songs that some people might argue is a little bit cliche, because it might remind you a lot of Imagine Dragons. So if you haven't heard it, go on Spotify, look up Samuel Day, Samuel Day, and the song is called Warrior Spirit. That's the song we're going to kind of take apart tonight. And I wrote it kind of thinking about those sort of stomp clap tough guy songs that you see in like movie trailers and stuff. I wanted to do something like that. I did it on purpose. But I also recognize that when you write a song like that, it's a very particular type of writing, right? It's the type of song you want playing when you're walking, when you're making your entrance into the arena before you step into the octagon, or when you're coming out of the tunnel to go play a football game. And that's a very particular genre. And I knew that. I had that in mind when I was writing the lyrics. But even though I'm aware of kind of the genre I was writing for with that kind of alt pop song, it doesn't mean that the lyrics don't mean anything to me. It doesn't mean that they're not deep or that they're just random stuff I slapped together. No, it came from an inspired place. And my basket on the dishwasher just came off the truck. Give me 1 second. All right, we're good. So for those of you who don't know, I've practiced a good handful of martial arts throughout my life. I'm a black belt in Kempo. I've also done some Muay Thai. I've done some Judo and Aikijitsu, a little bit of Krav Maga. So my ground game, my Jiu-Jitsu ground game isn't the best, but I've had a generally well-rounded martial arts experience at a pretty intense dojo that doesn't just hand out black belts for free, okay? Like my black belt test took months and months of training and was not a joke and had a real possibility of failure. And thank you, Jesus, I didn't fail, because it was possible. Let me catch up on some of these comments here. It's kind of a lot more comments than usual because we've got 2 platforms. We're live on YouTube and Facebook tonight. So as far as what I'm cooking tonight, I'm really it's not that exciting tonight. I'm just refreshing a lot of my supplies on things. So I'm going to brew some more tea. We're defrosting some hamburger meat to just kind of refresh the hamburger meat so I can do another week's worth of my sort of kind of taco salad things with the long grain rice, the tortilla chips, the taco meat, spinach, broccoli, carrots, ranch dressing, and some Cholula sauce. And we're going to put that together. So it's the same thing I was making last week. I got to keep it simple tonight and use the supplies that I have this time. So when I wrote this song, Warrior Spirit, I was really thinking about my return to martial arts. I had done a lot of martial arts as a teenager. I had done Kempo and some kickboxing and some Aikijitsu for a long time. And I had been out for about 12 years, and I had never quite gotten to my black belt. And that was for a lot of reasons. I had competed some as a teenager. Not a lot, but some. And I had won some brackets. I got some gold medals in some small to medium regional competitions. That felt good. And I know we've even got guys in the chat here that are tougher than me. So it's not me trying to flex. I'm just telling the story. And anyway, the dojo I was going to was a satellite dojo. Our grandmaster is a Filipino guy. He's been teaching since the 70s. He's got all kinds of thank you letters and commendations from everybody from Chuck Norris to police officers, right? So my teachers were former students of his, very high-level former students of his. And the town that I was in, I kind of fell off for a little bit toward the latter half of high school. I got busy with some other things and got up to brown belt. Didn't quite make it to the place where I was ready to test for my black belt. And then there was... I kid you not, this is going to be the most Midwestern thing you've ever heard, but there was a strike at the steel mill in our town. And that really affected the local economy, and the local dojo had to close down. The home dojo was miles and miles away up the highway, and at the time, I wasn't in the position to get up, to make that drive enough times a week as a high schooler for that to make any sense. So that was kind of where it ended, and it seemed like that was going to be the end. And then just a few years ago, I decided, you know what? I know it's been 12 years, but no, I'm an adult with free will. I can really and truly finish this out now. And as I got back into it, there were some skills and abilities that I had retained, right? I was still really flexible and fast. I still could spar decently well. I hadn't really stopped lifting at the gym, but my cardio needed some help. And for a while, it didn't even feel good to be there. I remember when I was a teenager, I would be so pumped when I was going to a tournament. I was like, I'm going to spar. I'm going to fight some people. I'd be listening to POD on the way there. It was a whole thing. Thanks for joining on YouTube. I see you peacing out. So thank you for jumping in. Well, I haven't done a lot of martial arts within the last 2 years that I've been in Texas. The last summer I went to the dojo a few times and worked out with some of the Muay Thai guys, and those guys are really tough. Some of them are semi-professionals doing full contact octagon matches. Those dudes are tough, and sparring with them is a privilege, but also humbling, right? So I've done some martial arts workouts over the last couple of years, but not a ton, right? Not a ton. So, but as I got back into it, one of the things that I found was that I needed to find that grit again, because in my mind, I guess I sort of still had it, but just like going to the dojo and feeling worn out and not wanting to get hit anymore, I had to find the teeth again, and that's really what started the writing of this song. So we're gonna pull up the lyrics. My meat is just about done defrosting. My rice is cooking over here. My dishes are clean. We're in good shape. Let me pull up these lyrics to the side. Now, I do know these lyrics by heart. I have performed the song live. There it is. I think there's a studio session. Actually, if you go on my YouTube channel and look up Warrior Spirit, yes, there's a sweet lyric video. I put so much work into the lyric video that it may as well be a music video. There's so many graphics and color changes and overlays. I put a lot of work into it. It's really cool. But there's also a live studio performance of this song with the full band. If you want to see it, it's there. I know the lyrics. I've performed it live many times, but I'm going to pull them up anyway just to be safe so I don't miss anything, up. Right? So I was kind of inspired by this chase, getting back into this world of martial arts a couple of years ago, but having to kind of find my teeth again in it, which took some time. Oh my gosh, I have too many windows open on my computer. I'm going to have to start dual screening or something if we keep going live on YouTube at the same time. All right. So again, I know it's written like a tough guy song. I understood the genre. It's a very particular thing. I was writing within those confines, but there is still some meaningful things about it. So that chorus, Warrior Spirit, don't mean I'm... And the song actually starts with the chorus, which I don't do too often. A lot of times I just get straight into the first verse, but we start off with the chorus. Let me move you over here. Oh my gosh, this camera is so much tighter. You may not always see my face, guys. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to lean. So this chorus, Warrior Spirit, don't mean I'm looking for a fight. It just means I can finish one. Look, that's a tough guy line to kind of kick off a song with. And that sounds like some macho man, to some people, some macho man nonsense, right? But don't lie to me and tell me that's not a hard line. That's a hard line. But one of the things, and I want you to keep this in mind as we talk through these lyrics, one of the things I was considering all throughout this song was power under grace. If you're an experienced martial artist, if you have done kickboxing, Muay Thai, Krav Maga, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, any of the above, right? You know that the immature guys are the ones, either the immature guys or the guys who really, really, really just want to compete and go pro. Those are the people who are actually looking for a fight. But an experienced, mature martial artist knows that the best fight is one you don't even have to get into. Because real fights suck. I can thankfully say I've never been in a real fight. I've been in some moderately intense sparring. I've hit and I've gotten hit. Even with the gear and the protection on, that's enough for me. But one of the things that you grapple with is like, okay, I'm learning these things. I'm not a violent person, but I have the ability to pull out this this primal thing on the inside of me in the moment when it's needed. There's a spiritual and an emotional and philosophical parallel for that too, for moments of life. When Mama Bear, Papa Bear, or whatever needs to come out, right? Yeah, David knows. David's like, they do suck. David knows because, let's just say David knows. David has some stories that wig me out, bro. So that opening line, though, it just goes hard, right? That's the line you want to walk out of the gate to. Warrior spirit don't mean I'm looking for a fight. It just means I can finish one, right? Pretty cool. But it very quickly gets deeper than that. And I think people just kind of sometimes gloss over these lyrics, but they do mean, honestly, a lot to me. So we keep moving, and all of these days hold a blaze that illuminates the night. I know I'm not the only one. So this is this idea that when you do your best to stand for what's right, when you do your best to stand for the word of God, to be an upright person, to be an adventurous person, to be an uncommon type of person, sometimes you feel like you're holding up a light in the middle of a dark night and you feel alone. You feel very isolated. But there's also this, I love this mental image of like holding up a lighter or holding up a torch in the middle of the night and then starting to see others out throughout the darkness doing the same thing, right? So all of these people who thought and felt like they were alone because of their convictions, because of their stance, are able to find each other because they see each other's lights in the darkness. So I love that lyric for the poetic imagery that it evokes in me. And it reminds me a lot of in Lord of the Rings when they're lighting the beacons, because, you know, Gondor calls for aid and Rohan will answer. But the way that, because in Middle Earth they don't have cell phones, right? The way that they signal each other is this long network of huge, giant building-sized torches that stretch for hundreds. So you have like one big tower, and then 10 miles away you have another big tower that has a beacon that can be lit on it. And the way that they communicate these messages that someone needs help in time of war is they light those beacons. And when one tower watchman sees that tower get lit, he lights his tower, and then the next one 10, 20 miles away sees that and lights his. And so they can get this call for aid hundreds and hundreds of miles across Middle Earth countryside to let them know. And I always thought that was a really striking and poetic image. Now, all these days hold a blaze that illuminates the night. I know I'm not the only one. And every night there's a fire that can see another fire, and we're all getting closer. Same imagery, just kind of taken a step further in that next line. And every time they say that there'll never be a way, I remember that you made one. That's directed at God, that's directed at the Lord. But it's this unflinching attitude. Well, that's the right word. It's attitude. It's this unflinching determination that I love. I love seeing that in storylines of everything from fiction to real life. But it's saying, you know what? I'm gonna bite down on this. I'm not gonna give up on this. So that chorus altogether, warrior spirit, don't mean I'm looking for a fight. It just means I can finish one. And all of these days hold a blaze that illuminates the night. I know I'm not the only one. I might feel like I'm the only one, but I know I can't be. I cannot be. And there have been times in my life where I felt that way, where I felt like completely and utterly alone. And I have to tell myself, I know that I cannot be the only one holding to the truth on this thing. And every night there's a fire that can see another fire, and they're all getting closer. So like as we're all out about this, it becomes easier to find each other. And every time they say that there'll never be a way, I remember that you made one, right? Oh, I actually really love that chorus, and I hope people read it and they don't just sing it. So then we have our big intro and we get into the first verse. And again, I was also inspired a lot by K-pop in this song. And like K-pop in general, they tend to do a lot of those like tough guy, tough girl songs. And I love the attitude behind those. Now, I don't love pride. I'm not into pride. I'm not trying to promote pride. But there is a certain level, especially if you've been in martial arts, there's a certain level of like, if you're going to get in there and you're going to do this tournament, if you're going to get into the ring, and you have to have this level of, I love and respect my opponent. I'm not trying to kill them. I'm not trying to injure them. But I'm going to take them apart. And I'm not going to hold anything back, because only one of us gets to win, right? Okay. Our ground beef is ready. Our rice Our rice is definitely not ready, so we're going to work on this tea. Set this taco meat to the side. So let's get into the first verse. Oh, remember who you know. Oh, remember who you know. I have to sing it to remember the words. Remember who you know. Remember who you are and better who you were meant to be. You remember in The Lion King when Mufasa's in the clouds and he's like, remember who you are. That's kind of what I was thinking about with those lyrics. Remember who you know. Remember who you are. And even better than that, remember who you're meant to be. I think sometimes people can get discouraged by who they feel like they are in the moment, in the present time. But if we remember who we were meant to be, that can motivate us to kind of go to that next level, right? And identity is such an important thing. I feel like it's something I end up almost accidentally talking about a lot. Because if you believe that you were created for greatness, if you believe that you are the righteousness of God in Christ, if you believe that you're better maybe even than you're living right now, then when you mess up, your reaction is going to be, that's not who I am. This is not who I am. Let me move back toward who I am and who God defines me as, right? If you define yourself by the worst thing you've done or how you feel in the moment, then you'll be stuck there. But if you define yourself by something that you choose, then when you deviate from that, you can go, oh, no, that's not me. I'm making the choice. I am made for better than that. Remember who you are and who you are meant to be. Remember who you are in bed. I'm forgetting my own lyrics right now. Better who you are meant to be. No, let them take control of the world and try to make you what will serve them politically away. Yeah. So then we shift focus, right? We shift to remember, stay centered on who you are meant to be, what you've chosen. And then we shift to outside forces because the world is going to try to make you what will serve them politically, right? And I thought about that line when I wrote it. I was like, man, that's a little edgy. Do I even want to use the word political? And I was like, you know what? No better place to do this in a song than in a song that has a lot of attitude built into just the style, the genre that we're writing for. We have got the eyes to see and ears to hear the truth, and now we know that we have gained immortality. Again, really dramatic lyrics. Some might argue slightly nerdy lyrics. I understand that. I knew what I was doing. But there's also a part of me that just has always really loved grandiose language, like big, poetic, epic, unashamed, grandiose language. I had and you'll probably hear me say this. You'll probably hear me say this on more than just this live stream, but I'll tell you a short story. When I was in college, I had a music professor tell me once, he's like, Sam, you have kind of an overdeveloped sense of grandeur. Well, let me help you out if you need a definition of that word. A sense of grandeur is just a sense of things being grand and big and epic and adventurous. And I took that, I don't know that he didn't mean it as an insult, but he didn't mean it as a compliment either. But I take it as a compliment. Here's why. I have always believed, and C.S. Lewis said something really, really similar to this, but I have always believed that life was meant to be a big, good adventure. And so many times in our day-to-day life, there are times that it doesn't feel that way. Like when you've been through a lot of rejection, when you've seen family members die, when you've seen people betray you, when you have seen just hard times in general, it can be very easy to get jaded and be like, dude, you just wait. You ignorant, ambitious little boy. You just wait till you live a little bit more life and you'll let go of that. You'll let go of that expectation of adventure. How do I know that? Because I've had those feelings try to creep up in me many, many times. But I refuse to let go of this idea, right? Because I believe that if Jesus told us to pray that let it be on earth as it is in heaven, if I believe that life is supposed to be like what the original intent was in the Garden of Eden, in the Garden of Eden, they had a job to do. Like, it wasn't devoid of a task of work, if you want to use that word, but it was devoid of toil and fear. So every day's work was actually more of a quest. Every day's work was actually more of, here's the next adventure, here's the next cool thing, here's the next enforcement, So when that professor told me, Sam, you have kind of an overdeveloped sense of grandeur, I was like, nice, I want to hang on to that. Because the world will try to replace and make you what will serve them politically. We have got the eyes to see and ears to hear the truth, and now we know that we have gained immortality. That's me making a reference to receiving Christ, right? I love finding new creative ways to say things we've already heard. I have kind of an 80-20 rule about lyrics. I don't want to just write a bunch of cliches. I don't want to write the same King James one-liners you've heard 1,000 times. Now, there's a place for that, especially maybe in like congregational worship or whatever. But I think that the creativity that we have been given and the possibilities of language are much bigger than we give them or ourselves credit for. So I try to write that way too. And I don't want to be so high-minded about it that you can't understand the lyrics, that it's like, I have no idea what this guy's talking about. I don't want to get that esoteric and floofy about it. But I do want to challenge my listener to say, hey, if you listen to this song more than a couple times, if you maybe actually read the lyrics, something is going to click for you that maybe you didn't catch the first time, and then it's going to stick with you even longer. See, I know what I believe, and I don't have to choose between a lover and a fighter's identity. Love this line, right? There was a phrase, people don't use it as often anymore, but there was a phrase that still goes around, but went around a lot more often before, which is like, I'm a lover, not a fighter. And I think that's a contradiction. I don't see how you can't be both. I don't think you can properly walk in love. I don't think you can properly be a lover without the willingness to fight, right? Because if you truly love someone or something, you are willing to fight for them. I'm not fight over them, not squabble. I'm not being low level about this, but if I love my family, don't come at my family. You're gonna see a part of me you haven't seen before, right? And it's kind of like this righteous indignation. There's this healthy aggression thing that comes from that. It's not about who you hate. It's not about wanting to hurt anybody. It's not even about physical altercations or violence. It's not about that. But it is about saying no to things that aren't supposed to be mine, saying no to things that aren't supposed to be my family's. I don't have to choose. I refuse to choose between being a lover or a fighter. If you truly are someone who really, really loves, then you're willing to fight when necessary. You're not looking for a fight all the time, but you're willing to fight when necessary. Then we go through and we recap the chorus again. We already hit the chorus earlier, so I'm not going to repeat those lyrics at your face one more time. You can go read them again for yourself or go back in the video. And then we get into the second verse. Don't crack your voice, Sam. Take a breath and take a break, because I don't have to prove that I'm a force to be reckoned with. Another almost borderline cringy tough guy lyric, right? I know that. I knew it when I wrote it. But I wanted to double down. I wanted to double down on the toughness here. I'm playing with this holding in tension, this duality of the idea of strength under grace. See, most of the guys I know in the gym, in the martial arts gym, who are 210 pounds, built like Batman and could take you apart, are often some of the nicest guys I know. Why is that? Because they don't have anything to prove. They don't have a chip on their shoulder. Well, I mean, every once in a while you'll run into a guy like that. Somebody who's looking for a fight, somebody who's got a problem that he needs to work out. Stay away from those dudes. Help them, but stay away from them otherwise. But for the most part, like the guys I know that could take you apart, they're training to compete. They've got that dog on a leash and they know how to control him. So this idea that I don't have to prove that I'm a force to be reckoned with. Take a break. Sit back. Chill out. Holding that power under grace. That's real maturity, right? I heard somebody talk about this one time. It doesn't take a lot of maturity if you don't have the ability to do any damage. If you're peaceful because you can't do any damage, that doesn't even take self-control. You just don't have the ability to do anything. But if you have the ability to do damage with your words, with your money, with your fighting ability, with whatever, on whatever level of life you want to apply this, if you have the ability to do damage, but you don't, that's when you're actually exercising self-control. That's when you're actually exercising maturity. So that's kind of where we're going in the second verse. Take a breath and take a break, because I don't have to prove that I'm a force to be reckoned with. Pride can hit you in the side. Pride can hit you in the side, but I still got to run with boldness, spitting in that fear's eye. What, Sam, what are you saying? Well, first of all, that's like cowboy language, right? Spit in your eye. So I thought that was a cool line to throw in. But the idea being, I'm towing that line of saying, you know what? I'm not going to be ashamed of speaking or acting with strength. I'm not going to be ashamed of my own strength. But I know that if I handle that out of balance, I can accidentally become prideful. I don't want to do that either, right? Pride can hit you in the side. But at the same time, I don't want to be so afraid of becoming prideful or so afraid of someone accusing me of being prideful that I just never act boldly, that I never act with strength. So I don't want to be afraid of being called prideful or being prideful, but I don't want to fall in the other ditch either. That's what those lines are about. Pride can hit you on the side. I acknowledge that, but I still have to run with boldness, spitting in that fear's eye, like coming back at that fear of saying, you know what? I know I could be afraid of being called prideful. I don't care. I got to do this anyway. Spitting in that fear's eye, and I cannot deny. No matter what they say or what they do, I got to tune it out and focus on the prize. That's pretty self-explanatory, right? Just stay focused. Ascend and realize, then I cannot lose sight of greatness. Burn down the compromise. Ascend and realize that I cannot lose sight of greatness. Burn down the compromise. That came from something somebody said from me one time. They said, Sam, I want you to never let go of this word. One word, greatness. And greatness can mean a whole lot of things. It can mean things that are large and grand and beyond what people think is reasonable. But it can also mean being far-reaching and accomplishing your goal and doing something uncommon. I keep coming back to that word, right? Living uncommonly, being uncommon. Not to be like a pick-me girl or a pick-me boy. Like, oh, look at how different and special I am. I'm a little snowflake. I'm cooler than other people. No, that's not the point. But things that are uncommon have intrinsic value because of their rarity, right? So that line, I cannot lose sight of greatness, burn down the compromise, means I got to get everything. I got to get the fear of being called prideful out of the way. I got to get what other people say out of the way. I got to get what the world wants me to be out of the way so that I can focus on greatness and burn down everything else. There's actually a lot of depth in the lyrics to this song that otherwise just sounds like a sports song, like something you walk out of the tunnel to go play basketball. I was very intentional about how I wrote it, even if it is kind of tough guy lyrics. And then we recap the chorus again. And then the only other change in the lyrics, the chorus gets recapped again, but the lyric changes just a little bit. And it's warrior spirit means that I'm looking for a fight just to take from the evil one. And all of these days hold a place that illuminates the night. I know I'm not the only one. Exact same lyrics through all the chorus except for that one line that changes. Warrior spirit means that I am looking for a fight to take from the evil one, right? And I was thinking about this. Every other time we hear the chorus in the song, tea is almost ready, and our white rice is still thinking about it. Every other time we hear the chorus of this song, we say, look, yes, I have warrior spirit, but I'm not looking for a fight. I can just finish one. I know what I'm capable of, but I'm not looking to tear anything or anybody down. But then I wanted to flip that on its head, hold it in tension, right? This idea that, you know what? But where I do want to go on the offensive is taking from the evil one, taking from the enemy, taking from the devil, taking from Satan, building the kingdom of God, going on the offensive and being aggressive in that way, like channeling all of this aggression that I have done the emotional work to understand and acknowledge, but in a mature way, keep in check, and then channeling it toward the right thing. And that's the song. Go listen to Warrior Spirit by Samuel Day on YouTube. There's a great lyric video on YouTube. There's a great studio session with the live band on YouTube, or Apple Music, or Spotify. And I'm still shooting to get to 1,000 followers on Spotify. We're over 1,000 now on Instagram, so thank you all for that. But we're still working toward that goal on Spotify and YouTube. So go like and subscribe on those channels if you haven't already. That's our lyric breakdown for Warrior Spirit tonight. Our first batch of tea is done. Honestly, at this point, I got 9 minutes left on this rice. So let's put together a couple big jars of tea together, and then we'll sign off for the evening after that. If you have any questions or comments about anything that we chatted about tonight, I have been watching the chat. It's a little bit chaotic because we had YouTube up at the same time as well. This has been a little bit of an experiment to see how this would work. Is your new album called Refuse to Choose or what? No, but you are, as an artist, like, there are themes that continually I find come up in my music. It's refusing to let go of greatness. It's the power of choice. It's kind of being adventurous. And I write about other things, but the power of choice is a big one for me, because choice is involved in faith, so much more than a lot of people think. I think a lot of people, they really and truly believe that just kind of everything is in the hands of God, right? If it happens, it was God. If it doesn't, it wasn't. And God is definitely involved, but we involve him more through prayer, through obedience, through action. We have agency, and that's something that makes the relationship real. And it's something that I don't want to see people give up in the name of being religious. Because even Psalms, right? Psalms and Proverbs have ifs in them. A righteous man does this, a foolish man does that. If you do this, there are different consequences. Agency, choice, determination. And am I perfect at that? No. I don't mean to just talk a big game and act like a big shot, dude. I have not been perfect at that, at maintaining that determination day to day sometimes. I'm still working on it. But I can still acknowledge and pass along the truth, And I feel like there aren't a lot of people that write from that perspective. There's a lot of people who use their songwriting as just a sort of like a therapy session and to vent their feelings. And look, I'm an artistic person. I feel deeply. Some people have argued that artistic people feel more deeply than other people. I have big feelings. So don't get me wrong, I get that. But I also really believe that, despite our feelings, we still get to choose. And that's something that I just constantly find myself talking about when I'm writing. Using an emotional medium to talk about that. All right, guys, this has been a great live stream. My taco meat is done. My rice is almost finished. We just brewed a couple cups of tea. I'm gonna add my stuff to it. It was a fun experiment to go live on YouTube and Instagram. I'll probably do it again next time. I will most likely see you again next Tuesday night. I'm going to sign off for now, though, and finish up some things in here so I can get a little bit of music work done before I call it quits for the night. So until next time, everybody, onward and upward.